figured I'd do a little bit today. We'll definitely be doing some more, I guess, in the future. There ain't stuff going on. And it's really sad because our mayor has, it's just been astonishing to watch the level of deception and misinformation that's been going out there on some bills that the city council passed. And shout out to the city council, shout out to the speaker, really moving some things forward. One is called the How Many Stops Act, you may have heard it. The other is about solitary confinement. And there's been misconceptions about both. The How Many Stops Act in particular, and it's not an exaggeration, it's really Trumpian, the amount of massive lies that this mayor is saying. And we've seen this on a national stage, and so we've seen, please call for a ceasefire. I've already called for a ceasefire on many of my posts, so that's not news. But just a side note, I've been saying there's no discrepancy in being able to ask for our hostages to be returned and demand what's up, James? And demand a ceasefire immediately. And both of those things should be demanded. And having a war that has killed over 20,000 people, including some of the hostages, doesn't seem to make sense to me. So, but that's another thing. I don't want to go too very off, but I've already done that, and so someone just asked for that. And I want people to ask questions here, particularly about the bills, just so you have a better understanding when you hear the craziness that's being told. But on a national level, we've heard Donald Trump, really, who's literally saying things that are verifiably false, and he's doing that in an effort to have. What he's doing is getting people's emotions and their fears to work against them. Hey, Marguerite. So when that happens, things that are verifiably false right in front of your face, you tend to ignore. And sadly, that's what the mayor is doing now. I don't know. Laura, I see you. Look, there's some, please call Hamas. I understand that. I've already condemned what happened on October 7th. I just ask that folks stop trying to say one thing or the other. I'm lifting up everybody's pain. What happened on October 7th was horrific. It's already been condemned. What's happening now is horrific. Unfortunately, some people who can't say both of those things. And so we should have the hostages back, and we should have a ceasefire tonight. And so I just want to be clear about that. But whenever you say something, people kind of go back and forth. Everybody's in pain. We need to talk about it. 20,000 people are being killed, and people are being killed tonight, and we need to stop that. Now, back to what I was saying. The mayor's saying verifiably false things, and he's using, when we usually want people to override their intelligence, we go to public safety. We go straight there. So just so folks understand, if you go back 10 years, we had the abuses of stop, question, frisk. I think people remember that, and I think people remember that, and I think the reason we all agree now, because we didn't before, but we agree now that it was abuses happening, is because we had data. We had data and information. So I want to take people back when people didn't believe there were abuses, people saying that we were trying to destroy the city. When we said that there's abuse happening, the reason we got folks to agree is because there were finally some data that came. And there was a monitor that was put in place that to make sure that those abuses stop. Sorry about that. Let me see what I can do here. Hold on. I have it kind of jiggered up here, so hopefully this light still works. Why are you against the NYPD? The mayor is doing best. I'm not against the NYPD. But there was a monitor that was put in place that was supposed to oversee and make sure that those abuses weren't happening. And so what the monitor has found is that when he did his inspections of body-worn cameras, that there were undercounts of certain kind of stops. There are 4 levels of stop. The 4th is if there's a summons or arrest. The 3rd is what we commonly know as stop and frisk, stop, question, and frisk. Then you have level 1s and 2s that was are lower than a actual official stop, question, and frisk, with the level 1 being the lowest. The monitor has said that there's an undercount of those kind of stops. And people on the streets are saying that they're being stopped, but when the monitor is looking, why did you compare Eric Adams' opposition to the bill to Donald Trump ideologues? Because Donald Trump and the ideologues use false, verifiably false things. And they do that while pushing fear so people cannot see what's in front of their face. Eric Adams is right now doing the same thing. The things that he's saying about this bill are verifiably false. As a matter of fact, the bill that he's talking about, I probably wouldn't support. He's made up a bill and he's getting everybody in a frenzy. And so just to back to what I was saying, so the Monitor has said that they are undercounting their stops, and 25% of the stops that they have seen are unconstitutional right now, unconstitutional. 97% of those are black and brown. And they're either not tagging the stops at all. If they are, they're saying that a level 3 is a level 2 or 1, or a level 2 is a level 1. And level 1 has the least amount of information. So what we said is, let's try to get information on all of the stops, and let's try to get it as simply as possible. And so what I want you to think about is, one, there's no paperwork. This call and asking about, oh, we're going to swim no paperwork. There's no paperwork. Nothing is filled out on paper anymore. Things are filled out either on a smartphone or on a computer. So I just want you to be clear about that. Hold on. Agrees SQF, stop, question, frisk, what's the alternative? By the way, stop, question, frisk, being able to stop some people is something that officers need to be able to do. You have to be able to stop someone if there's reasonable suspicion, and you get to a frisk or a search if you have probable cause. Those things are needed to be happening. What was happening was abuse because they had attached quotas to them. So we want people to do good police work. And good police work is what we've always asked for. So back to, I don't remember where I was in what I was saying, but there is, according to the Monitor and anecdotal information on the street, there are abuses going on. So we said, let's get information about what's happening with stops. So we need PD to fight crime. We need PD to help solve crime. Yes, PD is a part of the partnership that we need when it comes to public safety. So right now in the patrol guide, I want people to know this because you might be surprised. Right now in the patrol guide, it says at the end of an officer's shift, they have to go through all of their body cam. What's up, Nick? They have to go through all of their body cam, and they have to tag level 1 stops. I just want you to know that. However they're defined, because the mayor is changing their definition of what a level 1 is and isn't. But I want you to know, however it's defined right now, you were on paperwork and how it's filed online. I'm not sure what that question is, but I think I'm trying to get to that. So right now, if I was an officer and I stop one of you, and it's a level 1 stop, whatever Eric Adams did the right thing, bro. I told you this week, the body won't count to record the interaction. This is DJ Scan, Brooklyn's favorite. Thank you for that. Would you put an inquiry? I want you to stay there because I want you to hear this. The person just said the body worn camera records the interaction, because that's correct. When the body worn camera records the interaction, at the end of the night, officers have to go through and they have to tag their level 1s. They have to tag it. Say this is a level 1 stop, however the PD defines it. They have to tag their level 2s. And level 2s right now, it asks for a parent gender and a parent race. That's not something we made up. That's something that was already there. So they have to do that right now. The problem is we don't have the apparent race and gender of the level 1s. We also don't have a report of what's on that body worn camera. So what we said is, let's get a report so we understand what's all there, and let's get some additional questions in. So when you tag that level 1, so I'm tagging it, tag, drop down menu, race, gender, age, reason for stop. In no way can that take more than a few seconds. By the way, one of those questions, the police department asked us to ask ourselves. They asked us to ask that question. They asked us to put an additional question there. So there is no way that can take a couple more seconds. In level 2, they already have to have a drop-down menu. We just added an additional one. So if you already have to tag that, you tell me how can it add the hours and hours of time that they're talking about. What we did say is, well, reason for a stop could be a narrative, correct? It could be. We also said in the drop-down, you can give reasons in that drop-down. Was it a 911 call? That's something else. Did someone ask you? That's something else. So it could be a narrative. It doesn't have to be. what PD is doing is trying to present the hardest way to do this. And what we said is you shouldn't do the hardest way. That doesn't make any sense. But I think the easiest way doesn't provide them for the proper narrative. So what we said to them is, look, if I stop someone here and I'm an officer, I can either do a form on my smartphone as I walk away, as I wait for the next call, as I'm leaning on the building, as I'm sitting in my car. Or if you can't do it right then, just do it at the end of the tour when you will tag your video anyway. Will you do the ride-along on Saturday? Oh, I think it's a great idea to do the ride-along. I don't know if it works with my schedule, so I'm trying to find another time. But I want to be clear, it's a good thing to do. I think the mayor's pushing it to try to get people's eyes off the lies that are being told. But just so you know, the ride-along will not have any impact on the bill. Because after the ride-along, what people aren't going to see is that the officer has to tag everyone they stop that is a level 1, level 2 stop anyway. And so what we're saying is in that level 1, just do a drop-down menu. So you can say you may not want to do it, but you can't say that it's going to cause hours and hours of overtime and be the end of policing as we know it. And the mayor is using people's pain against them, and he's weaponizing their pain and their trauma. And that sucks, and it's harmful, and I just wish he would stop. Is it stop based on suspicion or interaction like the mayor? The level 1 is called an interrogative stop. So you have to have some reason to try to have an interrogative conversation. So you're trying to get some information. And so if you have that stop, you're trying to get some information, it doesn't have to be about a crime, but you're doing your duty as an officer, then yes, it's a level 1. And you have to tag that whether or not this bill is in place. How do you feel about using those kids this afternoon? This is not the first second of time that they try to use people's pain to support things that aren't real. So I think it's sad that he did that. But I'm not mad at anyone that stayed with him because I know what happened. They give them wrong information. And of course they want to stand. If the mayor called me and told me about this bill, I might stand with him because it sounds like a bad bill. So I'm very glad we didn't pass the bill that he's talking about. Let's see. Oh, we also in the bill wrote, and you can read it yourself, it says, all of this is public, by the way, the patrol guide and the bill. We said very clearly, based on what the PD told us, this does not count for casual or general conversation with the public. That's like if you ask for directions. It doesn't count for that. So I just want people to know that. I'm going to do some more of these. When it comes to solitary, I'll be honest, I think there's some conversations we should have to make sure that bill is implemented in the safest way possible. The things that they bring up is not it. They've brought up, you can't handcuff same way you use kids to try to remove school safety from school. By the way, thankfully, everything I've said about school safety is online. I said that I would never support something that fires 500 primarily black women. So it just never was going to happen with school safety. What I did say and still agree is that we have to have a plan that is moving away from policing infrastructure in the schools and another model that helps keeps us safe. And I said it has to be a transition. And I think if you can't even dream of a transition, then we're problematic. And what happened then is the same thing. People just really misstated what I said. But thankfully, it's all online. All the plans were online. And actually, the police union head, I sent him the plan that we had put forth, and he didn't want to have any conversations with it. So I think the solitary bill is more problematic than how many steps. I do think another conversation. So the solitary bill, just so you know, one, I agree we have to have conversations. But two, nowhere does it say you can't handcuff people as you transport them in the bus. That's just asinine. It doesn't make any sense. It also wants to make sure that everybody's safe because our corrections officers aren't safe there either. We had a detainee die just a couple of days ago in Rikers. Second for the year. The year just began. We had a corrections officer's arm was broken just yesterday. So a detainee is not returning home ever. He's dead. A corrections officer is returning home different than when he came. His arm was broken. We have corrections officers who are women sexually assaulted on a regular basis, and nothing is really happening in terms of accountability. All of those things are real. What I have to say is that That's happening now. There are people trying to blame our bill for that violence. And what we're saying is the status quo is not working. It's not keeping people safe and keeping them alive. And if you want something new and different than the status quo, you actually have to do something new and different. That's what this bill does. So what the bill does is stop solitary. And I will say that for some intents and purposes, the solitary we think of was stopped a few years ago. But one of the things that has happened is that, one, there are people sometimes illegally being kept for over 24 hours in cells or other types of places. So I just want to be clear about that. But that aside, systemically, what's happening is they're having emergency lockdowns for safety reasons where people are kept in the cells for over 24 hours. And that is actually happening. And we want to make sure we stop that, which is why we talked about how long we can do the emergency lock-ins without letting people back out. The other part is what we said is we want to stop using isolation, not separation, isolation as a way to change behavior, because it hasn't. That's why the violence keeps going on. And so what we said is you should be able to separate people from the general population. You should be able to take away privileges if I also have Terrestrial Jones, so glad you helped me. I appreciate you. Peace and blessings to you, man. You should be able to take away privileges like commissary and other things to try to elicit some change in behavior. The one thing we're saying you shouldn't use is the isolation of cell time unnecessarily change behavior, because what we found is that it makes person worse and more likely to be violent, and is not helping. And so that's what that bill does. So I just want to get on here and explain, so when you hear some of the lies that are being told, we can get to the heart of it. And again, we said in the How Many Stops Act that you can't, casual conversations are not included. But I want you to be clear about this. If NYPD believes that casual conversations are level 1, if that's their definition, according to their own patrol guide, they already have to tag that. And if you already have to tag that, that has nothing to do with us. That has to do with what the patrol guide says, the NYPD. And while you're tagging it, it's inconceivable that a drop-down menu or even 2 drop-down menus would add any significant amount of time to your day. Even the New York Post, by the way, the New York Post has said police sources say it would take 30 seconds, which is up from the 10 to 20 that we said, significantly down from the 3 to 5 minutes the mayor and PD has said. And that's the New York Post. What's up, James? You know if the damn New York Post is saying that, they're not trying to do no favors to your boy, I'll tell you that. So it's very cool that you're talking to people. I appreciate you. I'm trying to do a little bit more. I've kind of fallen off on it. But I'm going to check out now. I know I want to try to get to bed. I know folks want to try to get to bed. So if people have any last minute questions, I'm happy to answer them, particularly on the How Many Stops Act, but on solitary as well. So do folks have any other questions that they... And I've invited trolls if they want to come on. I've invited law enforcement. I'm inviting the administration if they want to come, because I welcome the transparency. Let's see. What we hear is the two are related. What is the plan to end recidivism? The abusers always want to abuse. What is our new constitution? Brown versus Board still. I think that's a much larger question, which I'm happy to try to address at some other time. But right now, I want to answer questions people have. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Gary, man. But I want to answer questions if people have other questions about either of the bills or anything I just said, or you want to challenge anything I just said about the bill, you can do that too. How can we find this info to read on our own? I know William is on here, folks. What's the best way? We have some talking points that we're going to put out. If we have any links to the bill itself or to the patrol guide, we can put them on here if folks are on. But that's a very good question. You can go to City Council and you can find the bill there. But let me find out the best links to put on here, and I'll try to jump back on the live to do that. And let me see who asked that. That was Francis Mikowicz. Let me try to get a couple links, and I'll try to jump back on another time, okay? I'm going to do my best to save this live, Jess, so folks can get back and take a look. All right. It looks like folks don't have any other questions. I appreciate y'all. It's been a minute. Oh, so there is at least some. That's some press releases we put out recently on what the mayor was saying, so you can see that black and white are equal in Islam, for sure. Please define solitary confinement. Are you equating solitary confinement with penal segregation? So one thing that they've been trying to do is, would you prevent a federal officer from making their partner record all their encounters? I'm not sure what that question means. Where I don't know what question I skipped. Blaskiat. But somebody asked about their partner recording. I'm not sure what that means. We're going off of what the patrol guide says and what you have to report from your body-worn camera anyway, and the information that we need. But Black Alliance, you asked a good question about solitary. I think what they want people to do, let PD do their job. And Pico 79. Yeah. Flagging your level 1s and level 2s is actually police work. So this notion that we're trying to prevent police work doesn't make sense. This is police work according to their own patrol guide. Is a prosecutor's client not the complaint? So people are trying to pretend that we're talking about Shawshank Redemption when it comes to solitary. We're not. That's not what we're talking about. And I want to be clear when I talk about solitary and isolation. Whatever you call it, punitive segregation could be solitary or it could be just isolation. We're trying to stop solitary, as most people think. People in their cells for longer than 22, 23, 24 hours and several days. And we're trying to spin, Blaskia. What's the troll? What's the question? I don't mind if you are a troll, but let me know what the question is. I don't know what the question is, Blaskia. So, and then we want to stop the isolation. How can a prosecutor offer a defendant a plea deal without consulting? I don't know, bro. Blaskia, you're asking a question that I'm not talking about. I'm talking about how many stops act, and I'm talking about solitary. So if you have a question on that, I'm happy to answer it. If you have a question that my office can assist with, you can email gethelp@advocate.nyc.gov. So you can email gethelp@advocate.nyc.gov. You can also go to my advocate page, which is on Instagram, or Twitter, or Facebook as well. So when we're talking about punitive seg, if they're using isolation, meaning that if you're not asleep and not the hour before you go to sleep or the hour after you've waken up, then you're using isolation in the cell as a way to change behavior, and we're also trying to stop that. And so we are allowing for restrictive housing. And what we're saying is not to use isolation as the punishment because it doesn't change. So we're allowing restrictive housing. You can restrict a lot of things. It's just really the isolation that we're talking about. Hopefully that answers your question, Black Alliance. That's a very good question. Thank you. So I think people have been using a lot of terms interchangeably. All right. With that, hope everybody has a great night, and looking forward for a great Monday and a great week. All right. Peace, everybody. Appreciate y'all.